In 1986, if you knew about Arkansas State University, you likely only knew about their football program. Since 1979, the Arkansas State Indians had been led by former alum and head coach Larry Lacewell. And in 1985 to 86, the Arkansas State Indians football team was in their heyday, having won back-to-back Southland championships, and in 1986, they were the national runner-up at Division I AA, now known as the FCS. For much of the school's history, the same could not be said for the Arkansas State Indians men's basketball team. The Indians had enjoyed some basketball success in the 60s at the Division II level, but in 1975, Arkansas State University moved to the Division I level for all sports, and therefore the basketball team moved as well. Since 1976, the Indians had been led by head coach Marvin Adams, but unfortunately for the Indians, their best record under Marvin Adams was a 17-12 finish in the 1982 to 1983 season. Despite several winning seasons, the Indians found themselves just barely over 500 on their best years and well under 500 on their worst years.
I've never had a team shoot that bad for me from the field, and I think we've got better shooters than that. It's just, I think, probably one of those nights where it just wouldn't go down for you, and it seemed like we had a lot of shots that got in the cylinder and came out, and we were all around it, but we just couldn't get the thing in the hoop. So I hope it's just one of those bad nights and that everything will get better in the future.
In 1979, Coach Marvin Adams brought on a new face to be his assistant coach in Nelson Catalina, a Ouachita Baptist alum and Northeast Arkansas native.
Out of the clear blue, I didn't know Marvin Adams from anybody. I get a call one afternoon, and it was Marvin. He said, "Would you have an interest in being my assistant?" My assistant coach is leaving. They only had one at that time and was going back to Kansas. And I said, well, maybe we talked and discussed some options and some things. And I grew up at Pearl, which is only 50 miles from Jonesboro, which was interesting to me because of my parents. My dad was getting older. My mother was getting older. And I wanted to be near them if I could in their last few years. And so as it worked out, the money was a lot better, and I went to Ouachita, believe it or not, and asked for a little bit of a raise to offset some of what I'd been told I would get if I went to ASU, and they told me they could not give me anything. So we decided to move, and in 1979, in June, we moved to Jonesboro, Arkansas State.
Despite the hiring, the Indians would struggle for the next several seasons. Although they would have several winning seasons, the Indians never finished higher than 500 in conference play, and in 1983, the Indians finished with a 13-15 record, 4-8 in the Southland Conference, and only 5th place. They were one of the worst scoring teams in the country that season. The administration at Arkansas State had finally started to have enough, and a change soon came down the line.
There was rumors around that the higher-ups were not happy with Coach Adams, and I thought he had done a really good job, to be honest with you, and I was happy to be there and be his assistant. I'm in Harrison, Arkansas at the state tournament doing some recruiting, and I get a phone call late that night, and they said, hey, we want you back here in the morning by 10 o'clock. I said, well, I'm on the road recruiting. He said, it doesn't matter. You just stop what you're doing. And I said, what's up? And they wouldn't tell me. So you got to be here in the morning. And so I got up early the next morning and drove home from Harrison and got there. At that time, Coach Lacewell was the athletic director / head football coach. And he called me in. He said, hey, meet me at the Hilltop. There was used to be a couches out at the Hilltop, an old barbecue place. I said, okay, what's up? And then we went out there, and he said, hey, we're going to release Coach Adams, and we want you to be the head basketball coach. And I said, do what? And I, sort of caught me off guard, to be honest with you. And I went home and talked to my wife, and she said, if this is what you want to do, let's go for it. And I said, well, this is not easy. And plus, Coach Adams is the one that brought us here. And I hate to feel like that I'm going behind his back or whatever. And she said, you're not going behind him. They called you.
Despite a lack of sustained success, Marvin Adams did leave Coach Cat with a good roster to build off of and a good recruiting base to work with to build a new team. Catalina would need it against a very strong Southland Conference.
And the league was real good. People don't realize Joe Dumars played in that league. There were several players that played in that league that were that were outstanding. P.J. Brown played it and got drafted. There was a bunch of really, really good players. Karl Malone played at Louisiana Tech, was in the league. A pretty good player, rated as number one of the top 50 players ever played in the history of the game. So
Catalina went 14-14 his first season, including a 6-6 record in the Southland Conference, much like Marvin Adams had for much of his career at Arkansas State. But in the 1985-86 season, Catalina's team saw great improvement. With a record of 18-11 and 7-5 in the Southland Conference, the Indians finished third in the Southland Conference overall. The Indians were also starting to develop their talent into a winning team. Forward Brad Goshen had already received playing time the season before 1985, and in 1985-86, he averaged 12.1 points a game and 3.8 rebounds a game. The team was also helped out by freshman John Tate, a highly sought-after forward from the state of Arkansas, who in his freshman season averaged 7.3 points a game and 4.8 rebounds. 85 also marked the first season that point guard Steve Weedover could play.
I actually played at Oklahoma City University, where I started, and transferred out and contacted, some schools when I transferred out. They were a Division I school, and they went NAIA. They were dropping down, so I was, looking for another school. And of course, Coach Catalina had recruited me coming out of high school, and made contact with him, and he was very interested. So that's sort of how we got the ball rolling. Me, getting to ASU.
The 1986-87 season would also mark the final season that the Indians would play in their old home ball court.
We had good crowds. We had really good crowds, especially for home games in the league, and the students turned out in droves. There weren't very many what we call chairbacks nowadays. There's very few, if any, that they built across the line there for season ticket holders. And then when I took over, we still played there, and then the building was old and dilapidated and leaked real bad, and Bill Clinton was the governor, and he had gotten beat soundly in that area. I don't know if you remember those politics back then. If you read about it, he got beat soundly by a guy named Frank White, and was a Republican. And the reason why is he raised car tax without saying anything. And his sort of promise was that you guys in Northeast Arkansas will get me reelected to governor. We'll build you something, which we needed it regardless, and we did. And he got reelected and carried that area by 65%, I think, if I'm mistaken. And the state gave us what was then a lot of money, $20 million, to build the Convocation Center.
We played at the old Indian Fieldhouse. Was my last year. My last year was the last year, they played in that. So I think the first event that they had in the Convocation Center was my graduation, my senior year. So, the atmosphere there was just unbelievable. I mean, it was like an old airport hangar. It's not even there anymore. It was about seated about 6,000 people, and it was full pretty much every night and just extremely loud. We just really enjoyed the fans there. I mean, they were loyal, and they were there every night. According to whoever we played, they were going to be there, and it was a good culture. I mean, a great place to play.
Thanks to plenty of returning veterans, the Arkansas State Indians spent the 1986 to 1987 season winning. The Indians won their way to a program record 21-13, which was the highest win total that the Indians had ever received in men's basketball. 4 Indians players averaged double digits in scoring, and John Tate had a monster season his sophomore year, averaging 15.6 points a game and 6.6 rebounds a game. Weedover also had a monster season in his senior year, averaging 11.9 points a game and 2.7 rebounds, with 3 assists per game.
We ran flex offense. I mean, it was, pretty methodical type of offense that you went over and over. And of course, my last year was the first year of the 3-point line. And so, the teams played a lot different, back then. Nobody, the dribble drive, a lot of the on ball action was things that came after that. So, but we were, half court, man to man, that's probably what we really based our program on, was just, tough nose defense and flex offense.
That season, and do your best on remembering this one specific season. Did you know before the season started that the team was going to be special? That the team was going to make a deep run?
That, you know, it was our opportunity. Had a pretty good year the year before. We're right in the mix for the, you know, for the conference championship, and definitely thought we had a great chance that year. You know, one of the things I do remember is we went to Memphis, beat them on a buzzer beater at their place. Definitely was a big win for our program. You know, finished, I think, second or third in the conference, and then got to the finals of the, you know, the conference tournament and got beat by, I believe it was Louisiana Tech in the finals, and, you know, was that close going to the NCAA tournament. But, you know, it was a, you know, just like any other season. I think there were little ups and downs, you know, during the season, but we finished strong, and, you know, we're able to get that NIT bid at the end. Well, it was, you know, I mean, it was a lot of excitement. I mean, of course, you know, going to postseason was something we shooted for, and then when we got matched up with Arkansas, you know, that just made it even that much more exciting. And, you know, we had a lot of Arkansas players on the team. You know, of course, myself, Brad Goshen, Baker Mosley. I mean, there were, you know, 4 or 5 others, I think, that were on the team. That it just made it that more exciting for us. You know, yeah, the students, you know, after the announcement was made, I mean, it was just, you know, it was all over campus. You know, that's all people talked about. You know, just the press, you know, just everybody wanted interviews. You know, I mean, it was, you know, it was going to be a big show that night. We felt like we had a great chance going into the game. I mean, it was, you know, a game that we, you know, was looking forward to. And of course, you know, we knew going to their place, it was going to be tough, you know, a hostile environment. But, you know, we had won a lot of games that year on the road. I mean, we were taking pride in being able to go out and do the things it takes to win games on the road. So that was something we were used to, and I think that really helped us, you know, in that environment. But definitely going in at halftime, we felt pretty good about ourselves. They wore us down a little bit. I mean, we didn't play near as many players as they did, and, you know, the press and everything that they did for the whole 40 minutes over a time, I think it wore us down a little bit, and we wasn't able to execute the way we needed to win the game at the end of the game. Well, I think it was just, you know, a game that everybody got excited for. I mean, it showed the state that, you know, there's other universities, you know, here in the state that play a high level of basketball, and I just think it gave the smaller schools an opportunity to showcase themselves, and definitely I think it meant a lot to us, you know, taking them to the wire and playing them in overtime, and letting the state know that, hey, you know, there's other schools that can, you know, play at that type of level.
You were limited in the area you could recruit by, primarily. You know, you stayed pretty much within the boundaries that you could drive to and see. Occasionally, don't get me wrong, we used St. Louis as a stepping block because I had to recruit St. Louis some when I was at Ouachita and got to know some people up there, and Little Rock, obviously, and some other areas. But you could almost